Genau, ja.
Yeah, copy that, Andre. Let's leave it on for the right fingers on that.
Okay, good job, good job. Cool, cool. Thank you guys.
You're actually the one side of Virgin, right? Yes, I agree.
79 and the 77. Schiavone is another of those drivers doing double duty. Kessel Racing, and then Delahaye on row 13. These are the GT cars now. United Autosports, Sean Lynn down in 25th in the LMP3, and a couple of others that had issues that are down there on row 14 and 15 of the grid behind the GT cars. Cars that didn't manage to make qualifying laps whatsoever. We already have one car in the barrier, as you may have seen. There are two Porsches in the field. That's the number 2 Porsche. Sportserbe Zurich C by TFT, I think is how you say it. But
it's the Porsche Center Zurich. It's Porsche Zentrum Zurich. Nicky Leutenweiler, I'm afraid, has had a big whoopsie by the look of it on the way out the collecting area.
Well, it didn't go through into the pit lane. They carried on out of the collecting area straight across the start-finishing line. And very odd to have an accident there. As you can see, though, Peter Dumbreck, we have mixed conditions. There is very much now a dry line on circuit, but offline is very, well, greasy, I suppose.
Exactly. You can see the drivers trying to warm their tyres up. They will be on slick tyres, I would imagine, which is why that Porsche, coming through that very gentle bend, has somehow managed to spear it off to the right-hand side. So unfortunate end to his race before it even began. But yeah, it's difficult conditions. We've had no rain all weekend, all week, and suddenly overnight we've had a lot of rain and the track is not fully dry. So everyone has to now get used to driving on slick tyres on a slightly damp track, as you say.
We are under safety car conditions. The drivers would usually be led to the grid by the safety car, then deposited on the grid, and then they would go 2 by 2 to the start. We were told we're going to have a safety car start. What seems to be slightly confusing is why they haven't kind of gone to a dummy grid and then gone from the dummy grid under safety car into race conditions. Maybe there's no need for that. There are some cars that have parked up in pit lane and gone into pit lane, presumably because the tyres they left the collecting area, which is down by the kart track here at Le Mans, were not the tyres they actually want to go racing on. They've gone a couple of corners, maybe 500 meters on the track, and decided they want to change their tyres. I don't know what tyres I'd be going on, Peter, right now.
Definitely slicks.
Yeah.
You can see a couple of cars there pulling over to the wet areas of the track, and obviously they aren't on slicks. But I think we don't have any rain forecast for the duration of this race, on my app anyway. So therefore the track is going to be a dry track gradually, and the slick tyre for sure will be the quicker tyre.
So as you saw from that shot, we do have 5 cars in pit lane. We have 1 car in the barrier. The 5 cars that are in the pit lane at the moment, Nico Kari in the Euro International. Team Virage is also in pit lane. Müller Motorsport with Gilles Magnus. We've seen him racing touring cars as well over the last couple of weeks. Rinaldi, I think that is, also in pits, and 1 GT3 car, Spirit of Race.
Yeah, it's one of the 2 Rinaldi cars. That's another addition to the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year, moving over from GT3 with 2 Duquesne LMP3s.
So now let's see what happens now.
Well,
safety car lights are still on.
Yeah.
So they're not, the safety car's not going into the pits. Of course, this is the first time that any of these drivers have seen these conditions this weekend, and we saw it also in the Porsche Carrera Cup race that preceded this, that they did do 2 green flag laps to get used to track conditions. So expect another lap of this. But is this the first lap of the race under safety car, or was that a warming up lap? Now, some of the drivers feel like they want to go 2 by 2 here. That's not how we're playing ball today. We won't go 2 by 2 when we do get this race underway. We will after safety car. Okay.
So the lap counter has ticked over to 2. So they literally have gone straight from the collecting area onto a race lap.
I'm not at all sure how that's happened.
And you've got all those cars in the pits who were expecting to go and change their tyres, and miscommunication perhaps.
Oh, well, presumably those guys are now 1 lap down.
They are complete lap down.
Or now 2. Yeah, I guess, yeah. And well, there'll be one at the back of the pack, yeah.
Let's see if they get released. All the cars have gone past them, but the safety car, the light at the end of pit lane is still red. And in fact, is that another Kessel car gone into pits at the end of that lap by the looks of things?
67 car is on pit lane.
Yeah. So that's, I suppose if we're under race conditions, they can go in and change their tyres.
Yes. They're going to be changing to slick tyres.
We've just got to hope that the pit lane is now open and he can join the back of the train. At least by doing that, they won't have lost a lap. Yeah, I can see now that those cars that were in pit lane have been released. So they have not lost. Well, they have lost a lap, but once that number 67 car that we saw pitting gets that back onto track, that will be okay. They won't have lost a lap. We don't know at the moment what tyres all of these cars that we're seeing are on. Certainly we've seen some cars hunting for wet conditions, and therefore you would presume that they're trying to cool down their wet tyres. But as Peter Dumbreck says, if they are on wet tyres, that's not the right tyre to have. If you want to be on slicks, that Kessel car could be very, very strong from the back of the field if they're the only ones on slicks. And presumably the cars that have come out the pits, that were sitting in the pits before the race got underway but didn't get underway.
I think the clue is all the cars all the way down the field that are weaving are on slicks,
yeah.
and the ones that are sitting on the straight line over the wet patches, they're on wets.
At least this, the Porsche crashed under race conditions, therefore. It wasn't coming out of park, where he was actually under race conditions. Safety car will come in at the end of this lap, so we will go racing. The race, as you can see from the top of your screen, 13 laps. And it will be time limited as well, if we have more safety cars, which we saw in the Porsche Carrera Cup. As you can expect with mixed conditions like this, very, very tricky to work out what kind of grip you've got in what part of the circuit. The conditions in France over the last couple of weeks have been beautifully warm, and therefore the roadways, the public roads that we use for the majority of the lap here, will have gained a huge amount of traffic, kind of oil and stuff from road use. Then when you add water to that, it's particularly horrible, Peter.
Yes, it does get awful slippy. So yeah, we saw the Porsche races. There's quite a few incidents. Even the front runners running wide, not really sure of the grip. As I said, though, in this situation, you've definitely got a track that is a slick track right now, and it will only get drier, and the grip level will come up gradually. So I think a bit easier for these drivers now.
So the Kessel Racing car has rejoined, will be at the back of this train, but doesn't lose that much, depending on, as we quite rightly say, Ben, whether or not the cars ahead of them are still going to be on wet weather rubber, because there is, well, it's completely dry on that dry line, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We had yesterday DKR number 3 take victory ahead of the two Cool Racing machines, but it was incredibly, incredibly tight at the end of the race. Less than a second covering the top 3, I seem to remember, and there were good gaggles of cars all the way through the field. Obviously, the difference between the gentleman drivers and the more experienced drivers in this race are much larger than you might see in the full 24 hours of Le Mans. Safety car lights are out. The pace of the safety car is building now.
It was disappointing, by the way, for the 4th place car, which is the 4th car in that cluster that came to the line. Colin Noble penalised heavily for an infringement on a caution, speeds under caution, dropped from 4th to 14th post-race.
Number 75, IDEX Sports, Patrice Lafarge. That was an early retirement out of race 1, but will start P4 so row 2 on this. How many of the mechanics are getting ready by the looks of things to receive their cars on this lap? That would be very unwise, but I suppose you don't want to spend too many laps cooking your wet tyres.
The thing is, obviously we had the warm-up for the 24-hour race just before this one, and any switched-on teams would know that the majority of cars were running, in fact, I think all cars were running slick tyres at the end of that session. So they really should not have sent any of the cars out in wets, because it was a slick track.
Safety car will peel off as it did in practice anyway, after the last part of the Ford chicane. So very, very late. And the LMP3s therefore are backing each other up to try and go. And now we are racing as it would be a restart from a safety car rather than a race start, so single file, and already making moves up into fourth position. Racing experience, moving up into fourth ahead of Patrice Lafarge. That's Nicolas Mella. And nicely spread out, not too compressed at the front of the field as they go into the first corner.
Nicola Malini got a really good jump there coming out of the final element, the chicane. Managed to get the jump on Jean Glorieux and got a couple of cars lengths away, and it's pulling away at this point with Glorieux under a little bit of pressure from behind from the Graf car in the hands of Rory Penttinen.
The first two of our GT3s, 7th and 8th in the field. Iron Lynx with Rino Mastronardi ahead of Hiroshi Hamaguchi in the Lamborghini, which was very, very rapid, as you would expect, in the hands of Andrea Calderetti yesterday. They will be at each other's throats for this first part of the race, because they've got 10 or so LMP3s between them and the next best GT3, which is down in 20th spot. 3 wide as the LMP3s start to pick up pace down the Mulsanne.
It's the Lamborghini side by side with the Ferrari. The two big Italian brands here. Hamaguchi, no mean driver. Japanese gentleman driver, but lots of success for him, and he's going to go up the inside here to take the lead in GT3. He does it.
And further back, 3 wide, as more of the LMP3s trying to sort each other out going into the first corner, first chicane, one of which decides against even taking to the chicane. And some of those, I think the United Autosports car of Daniel Schneider making up places there, but they are also, there's not a huge disparity between LMP3 and GT3 in terms of speed along the straight. Look how that Ferrari is towing along.
It's right tucked in underneath the wing of that Duqueine. These are quick cars, 5.6 litre Nissan engines now, this new breed of LMP3 cars making their debut here at the Road to Le Mans, at the Le Mans 24-hour circuit. It can be interesting to compare in full dry conditions, lap times with the previous breed. Went back to 2015, of course, and what a success these cars have been.
A real slipstreaming battle as they go down into the Mulsanne corner next. We just saw Christoph Krebs moving up into 13th position ahead of Daniel Schneider in the United Autosports. Ahead of them is James Dyson in the RLR. There's changes further ahead as Cool Racing's Maurice Smith goes up into 6th ahead of Patrice Lafarge, who is dropping down positions. In fact, Patrice now being passed by the Lamborghini GT3 car, which leads our GT3 category.
Looking very good at the moment, isn't it, for the Triple F Racing? Lamborghini Huracan, Hiroshi Hamaguchi, keeping it on the island, quick and consistent, and picking up places. Behind him, pack of LMP3 cars, mix of Duqueine and the Ligier chassis.
Presumably, the LMP3s are going to have a much bigger advantage through the Porsche curves than the GT3 cars. That's where their extra speed is as we go side by side into Indianapolis and get squeezed into the gravel, but luckily keeps it out. And this is right in the middle of the pack. This is a battle for kind of the teens, basically.
It's James Dyson, that is, in the RLR car, 15 car, going side by side with, I'm trying to think, work out which is 23 United car. Daniel Schneider and John Schaumann in the 23 and 24 cars are in that mix as well. Great stuff for the Road to Le Mans again. And this time, the man under pressure, it's again Patrice Lafarge dropping back here a little. Under pressure now from number 6 car, and then from the second place car in GT3. That's the first of the Iron Lynx cars in the hands of double race winner in the Le Mans Cup so far, Rino Mastronardi.
Yeah, and a bit of a chicane now as the lack of downforce in the GT3 car in comparison to the LMP3 car.
I do wonder whether that car's not on slick tyres. The movement of the car, it kind of looks a little bit loose, and therefore they're starting to overheat. I do wonder that.
Hasn't chosen to go into the pits. We haven't had many pit visitors.
I mean, it could be that he's just not super comfortable yet in the changing conditions, but he's certainly losing out a lot of pace to the big group behind him.
Patrice Lafarge got that Ford chicane very, very wrong, and he's going to have a fleet of LMP3 cars coming past him now in a big long train. Lafarge is actually going to have the inside line for the first corner, but he's already lost 4 positions, and here comes a 5th down the inside of that bright orange car, but decides, well, I'm not sure he decided against it. The door got kind of slammed on him. That was Daniel Schneider.
This is an interesting comparison between GT3 and LMP3 performance. Tony Wells leapfrogged 2 cars there, but was taken again by Mastronardi under braking into Dunlop turn, but has managed on the exit and down through the Forest S's and down now towards Tete Rouge to retake that position. Tony Wells, of course, one of the drivers who is doing double duty with the Le Mans 24 Hours as well. And that's the number 7 car that finished 4th on the road for Nielsen Racing, but dropped back with a penalty to 14th.
Another 4 cars go sweeping past.
It really does look like he's got wets on.
Yeah.
It's just, he's just not comfortable in that car. It's sliding around a bit.
And he had, from what was it, 4th position where he started, he's now on the outside. Well, he's going to be dropping into the 20s by the end of this lap, by the looks of things. What is his pace on that last lap? Patrice Lafarge did a 4:20. Oh, and there's contact.
24 car hit from behind. And
It's just about kept it out the barrier at the
there was
gravel.
I think he was clipped by the blue car that went up the escape road. That is Daniel Schneider, Brazilian driver in the 24 car, shared with Andy Merrick, full season Le Mans Cup. He's managed to get that restarted and backed out there. Let's have a look at which car it was that did he clip him? I think he did. No, he only lost it. He lost it under braking, didn't it? There was no contact.
He found the wet patch of ground there. Yeah, he just turned in a little bit too late, slightly off the racing line, and caught that wet tarmac.
So we've had 21 minutes of this race already, still 10 laps to go. So plenty of racing still to go. They do have 2 drivers, and they will be handing over, depending on who's in the car right now, we'll hand over to that driver either sooner rather than later to get their pro in. Oh, great bit of sliding from Jean Glorieux in the DKR engineering car that won yesterday's race. At the moment, 1.3 seconds down from Nicolas Maulini, who is leading in the Cool Racing car. His teammate Maurice Smith down in 6th position in the 69. And of course, the pace of all of these cars will change once the driver inside it also changes. We wait for those pit stops to happen in a few moments' time.
So we're watching the lead car and pulling away 2 seconds to the good now. Lead car in GT3, Hamaguchi up to 7th overall in that Lamborghini. On lap, working lap 4 of 13. Change, of course, in the race distance. Not 55 minutes, but 13 laps. But coming because of some issues to do with fuel consumption rates for these new LMP3 cars. That's lasted throughout the whole season so far.
Pit window is open, and already Jean Glorieux goes into the pits from 2nd position to hand over to his teammate Laurent Hoare, who took the car to victory yesterday. Looks like he might be one of only a few cars for the moment to dive into pit lane, although actually there's such a gap to 4th position that they haven't come past our window yet. Car 51 being told they need to repair the front and back light in the pit stop. Into the pits then. Let's have a look at the tyres. Those are slick tyres by the looks of things, so no need to change them.
Nicolas Melin in the Racing Experience car has come in. Justin, I think that was Maurice Smith. It was. He's down pit lane. That's going to put, for the moment at least, the Lamborghini up into 4th position overall.
Yeah, and actually a bit further back, we've got a lot of cars coming into pit lane now. Christoph Kress.
Yeah.
Now, tyres being changed by the looks of things on, was that the 17 we saw? No, they're just taking off the front right.
Remember, should be less, no real panic here. Timed pit stops in the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Pressure change going on for the 69 machine of Maurice Smith, Cool Racing. Now, they are taking wet front tyres off. They don't seem in much of a rush to do the rears. You'd have thought they would be a bit more panicked as Christoph Kress being pushed back into, maybe he's missed his pit box, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. That's the MV2S car that shares with Bruce Rouhani. Long-time Le Mans racer, now presenter of Top Gear France.
Oh, it's getting a bit busy in pit lane, having to be dragged into the pit box. There's a wet tyres on that car as well, so a lot of our cars were on wet tyres at the start of the race, and that kind of makes sense from a safety point of view for your gentleman driver to not get caught out by wet conditions on a dry tyre.
That was the number 4 Real Team Racing car, one of our ELMS guest entries here. That was Esteban Garcia coming in, so it will be David Drew to take the car to the flag. So some of the quick men getting aboard now.
It's a fine line, isn't it, where when you change from wets and you judging on the experience of your driver, but clearly those cars way up front who are pulling away massively were all on slicks. And, you know, it's almost worth just saying to your gentleman driver, just keep it on the island, don't go off, and we will win out of this. We'll gain position, track position.
You've got to say, almost certainly that GT3 Lamborghini has slick shod from the pace that that car has had over the first couple of laps. We haven't seen into the pits the leading 37 car. That stayed out on circuit. We have only about 13 cars that stayed out on track. The rest came into pit lane, and we've got some that, of course, are a whole lap down, having pitted at the very start of the race. They'll still have to do another pit stop. They still have to change over into theirs with their second driver.
Yeah, one of the cars staying out was one of the really quick numbers here, the number 14 car, one of the cars that stopped, started a lap down. Another ELMS car, Nico Clary, Finnish driver, young driver, very, very quick. And he's looking to get to the stage where he takes the opportunity to grab some track position at least before his laps are up, and hands the car over. Outstream, another bunch back into the fray. 9 laps to go for the leaders, but the leaders still need to make those pit stops. 2 minutes is, I think, the bogey time on pit stops here.
Joe Macari leaving pit lane in the 25, having been given the car by Sean Lynn, who did the first 4 laps. Bit short-changed, really. 2 laps under safety car, only 2 laps running. We've got 9 laps to go, so Joe gets the majority of the race.
That's the traditional way of these shorter races, these sprint races at Le Mans. The first driver gets to start, but quite often there's usually a safety car or some problem at the beginning, and you really only get 2, 3, maybe 4 full racing laps before you have to hand the car over for track position.
Leader in the pits, Nicola Molini, pulls into the pits. 6 seconds to good over the number 26 rather, Graf car. Rory Penson also down pit lane. Number 1 D-Car Engineering car, though. Second of their cars in the early order in the hands of Hugo de Wilde. That car carries on. We'll do another lap before we see that down pit lane at least.
Now, we always talk about undercuts in single-seater racing, but this could very well affect cool racing too, with 1 lap less. We've got a car in
CD
the gravel,
Sport car.
and that is Nicholas Adcock, who's made light contact with the barrier by the looks of things down at Marshall Point 24.
You know, Nick, British driver, but multiple South African endurance racing champion, has raced in the ELMS this year for Euro International, a Le Mans Cup full season entrant. What's happened there? Just run wide of the curb and just no grip.
But the rear wheels are still pushing him. That was an odd accident. You would expect him to have properly got on the brakes and have full wheels locked up. The rear wheels were still pushing him towards the barrier.
What generally is happened there is that the front wheels, obviously the brake bias generally is on the front wheels. Maybe they didn't change it for the wet conditions, which would normally go slightly back on the bias, but he got onto the wet bit of track, even onto the paint, and he was clearly braking. And that's the thing, you're trying to keep the front wheels turning so you can actually still turn the car, but at the same time slow as much as possible. And yeah, he just couldn't make that corner. Unfortunate for him.
So that will be a slow zone around the, well, actually a very long slow zone from the exit at Mulsanne all the way through to Arnage. So that will lengthen the lap quite considerably. And if our leader is in that vicinity, which I think he is, he's going to lose time to the 37 that comes out of the pits now, and is going to have, well, actually he's already lost the lead by quite a margin. Actually, that undercut's massively helped. How's that happened?
No, he shouldn't lose anything in the pit stop because it's a timed pit stop. What's happened is the D-Car Rinaldi cars have stayed out. So D-Car lead the race, Rinaldi now second. Cool Racing, I think he'll emerge in 3rd position. Just looking to see whether or not others have gone through. I don't think he's lost a further position here.
No, I've got myself confused with the two DKR engineering cars.
Yeah, there you go. They're
So
almost identical colours.
And the 3 car is in 3rd position now.
Correct.
Virtually.
Yes. So he should be closing in. We'll see at the end of this next timing.
Yeah, this has killed Ugo de Velde coming, through the slow zone.
Yeah.
But being in the slow zone, having not pitted, the rest behind at the moment are able to go faster.
Clash in the Fortune came between the MV2S and 23 United cars. Not a problem for this car, if you're watching and wondering. This is just the slow zone, so we'll get back on the power, but depending on how quickly they can recover that CD Sport car, this could terminally damage his race, couldn't it?
They are also talking about rain now on our timing screens. I don't know whether there is any rain. There's certainly no windscreen wipers going furiously. Level 1 to level 2 rain expected.
Level 1 is tiny, level 2 more significant, and with the pro drivers, level 1 should not be a major issue. Level 2, you're getting into the kind of area where we'll need to take that into account in terms of ultimate grip. But level 1 should not be an issue.
So just the two front-running cars just haven't stopped yet. Second place, Dominic Schwager. I saw his name. He started 22nd on the grid.
Yes.
Now running second.
But he stayed out.
He stayed out.
Yes, indeed.
And he has his gentleman driver to go in next.
He does indeed. So it's his first year in for Rinaldi Racing. They've had something of a mixed bag. Bit of a comedy error from one of their gentleman drivers in the first race at Paul Ricard, rather ironically taking out a late starting Nicola Mellini, who will re-inherit, or rather his car will inherit the race lead again. Oh dear.
It's getting a bit hot.
That's all a bit odd, isn't it?
It's getting a bit hot from the front end, though, unless it's just the way that it's hanging. Well, it's moved off the circuit anyway.
That's not coming from the front. That's radiators, isn't it? Or is it? He's got a brake fire. He's got a brake fire at the rear.
So look how much those rears are still rotating. I'm sure there's an issue there.
Yeah,
I think he's got a brake.
It could be that he hit the brakes for Indianapolis and it just didn't slow down.
There was that clash that Graham saw out of our window. That was lost them on my timing screen. They're too far off our timing screen. Oh no, Wayne Boyd and Matt Jacobson. RLR and Wayne. No, it wasn't RLR, was it?
No, that was the MV2S, Bruce Schiavone. So lots of cars to keep an eye out for here. Here comes the number 1 car through. This is still currently our race leader. Green flag is back now, and now the number 1 comes into the pits. That could have absolutely killed his race.
Depending on where the others are in the lap. I think they are in that sector that was under yellow flags. So windscreen wipe is on as well for Ugo de Velde, so he's experienced some precipitation out there. I was saying as we came into the box actually how high the clouds were, and there was a little look of the sun trying to break through, but obviously feels like there's some rain somewhere around the lap.
Or he can't switch it off.
I often have that issue. I'm like, where's the button for the wiper?
So timed pit stops. He's got an advantage over the cars that have pitted of about 125 seconds.
This is Dominic Schwager in the number 66 car. Good looking liveries, by the way, on both these Rinaldi cars. Also ahead of him is the Team Virage car, Polish-based team.
Dominic, of course, spent a lot of his career in Japan racing Super GT at the same time as me.
Now, the pit window's said to close. It just flashed up before these two got into pits. That's a time certain thing?
Well, I'll apologise, though unfortunately, but with the change, the late change in the race distance for this, I've not seen what the regulations say, whether or not it's timed, and I'm guessing it must be because 4 laps is not correct. It has to be half distance. So my guess is they've changed the race distance to 13 laps, but it's the time and not the distance that is defining when the pit window is.
But we don't really know when the race started.
Do you think there was a problem with time from the earlier sessions and they're trying to gain it back before the 24-hour start?
Sort of maybe, but it was a very odd start to this race. I've never seen anything remotely like that. I look forward to the explanation of it.
Well, fingers crossed, no problems for the 66, because otherwise he's just entered a closed pit lane outside of the window, and therefore that will be a heavy penalty.
23 car, Wayne Boyd is in the pit lane. Now that is a shocker, because Wayne, championship leader,
already done a pit stop, already swapped the driver, so he must have an issue with that car.
sorry, championship leader in the ELMS, but there must be an issue. And that is one of the race favourites, without a shadow of a doubt, in trouble.
Unless he's going to wet tyres, because light rain is expected.
I can't see at this stage, really. I mean,
It'd be a bold move.
it would, wouldn't it?
You'd need pretty advanced radar to know that there was heavy rain coming.
And he's way down the order, so it could be that it's a...
Well,
you know,
remember,
we can't make it up on track where we are. Maybe we gamble.
He had contact with Bruce Johnny at the chicane, so there could be damage to the car,
Yeah.
there could be a puncture.
Yeah. So at the moment, leading, it is the number 37 Cool Racing car from DKR Engineering and Graf Racing. They're the top three, with Matt Bell in the second of the Cool Racing cars. Colin Noble up into fifth. So it's a fine recovery from Nielsen Racing.
And here comes Mr. Top Gear, Bruce Johnny, passing Jacques Wolf in
now
CD Sport. And he's got another one in his sights as well in Gary Hauser.
in true Top Gear fashion, back to the studio and looking for where the pace is coming here, particularly from maybe some of these names that you're not familiar with. Looking in the top 10, young Melter Jakobsen, emerging Danish star for the RLR M Sport team, a ELMS LMP3 championship winning team, remember, and he's in the top 10 and making progress.
Matt Bell was a bit of a star yesterday, making progress, and again he moves himself up into third position ahead of Matthias Kaiser. Ish hasn't quite completed the move yet. Now going into Indianapolis he does. They are looking at the incident involving car 24. We did see that, but he didn't have contact.
No, he didn't.
Not much to investigate there then.
Matt Bell switching to Cool Racing with a programme both sides of the Atlantic with Morris this year, and going great guns. He won the Michelin Le Mans Cup race at Paul Ricard. Second race.
Yeah, very good driver, Matt. I always wonder how he managed to stay a silver rating. He's very fast indeed.
So we're now going to see a lot of fastest laps for each of these cars. In fact, the fastest lap of the race so far down to 16th positioned at number 4 Real Team Racing. David Drew has got that fastest lap so far at a 3:52. But you know, track conditions are developing all the time here.
David is one of the stars in LMP3 without a shadow of a doubt, and showing his form. Now on that kind of pace, he may be a minute down, but there's a fair way to go here. 7 laps, and they're long laps. And to give an idea here, that is race leading pace at the moment. They're coming through in the 350s now, the top two. Interested to see Matt Bell the same, so Matt is going to need to find something more to pull back the 4.5 seconds that he's behind Laurence Heur. So Edouard Dahup, Laurence Heur and Matt Bell look at the moment to be the 3 in the mix for the race win here.
And that little group of cars we saw fighting Bruce Johnny, Jacques Wolf and Gary Hauser have also now caught up with... No, they haven't caught up with Colin Noble. That must be a back marker ahead of them. Bruce Johnny looking to the inside, but not quite close enough. Oh, that car is in front of 11. Oh, a bit of bodywork flying off Bruce's car. He had contact at the Ford chicane with Wayne Boyd, so perhaps that's a legacy of that. Just a rear... I don't know what you call it. It's part of the diffuser, actually, by the looks of things, on the left-hand side.
Pit window, by the way, was 22 to 32 minutes. And just looking to see whether or not we do get penalties, because I think at least a couple of those cars did miss it.
Yeah, so that is Francois Hérault in the Euro International car, down in 28th position, being lapped. Nico Carey was in that at the start of the race.
He was indeed. So Nico Carey's the regular driver of that car as the number 11 in the LMS. Francois Hérault, to regular viewers of the ELMS from last year, will recognise him as being one of the ultimate, the number 17 car for the last couple of years in ELMS, with commercial issues following the COVID crisis, I'm afraid we've not seen Ultimates move up into LMP2 as they planned.
And that is one of the first cars 1 lap down, not because they're lapping slowly, but because they sat in the pits, having changed their tyres at the start of the race, and were not released onto the track for a whole lap. I'm sure there's going to be question marks to race control about why and how that ended up happening, because there were 5 or 6 cars blocked. But then we saw Kessel Racing come in 1 lap later, change their tyres, go straight back out onto circuit. So a difficult call for those teams and a difficult call for race control to really understand, and it has compromised 6 cars' races a lot.
That was the 67 car, wasn't it, that did the early stop. Nicky Cadite, by the way, now up into 4th position in the GT3 class, and he's got about 40 seconds to make up to catch the current 3rd place car. That is the Sky Tempesta Racing 93 Ferrari, and the guest cars, not one of the full season Le Mans Cup cars.
And this is Colin Noble going past Matthias Kaiser up into 4th position. Lovely slipstream all the way down to Indianapolis and claims that position. He's not far off the next target. 5 seconds to the good is Matt Bell, and Matt Bell trying to chase down the front too, but at the moment on the last lap lost a little bit of time as Eduardo Calp in the Cool Racing 37 establishes a lead of over 2 seconds now.
But, that was Duquesne on Ligier. 2 LMP3 chassis we have on parade this weekend. And Colin Noble looking to sweep away some of the cobwebs of what's not been a very lucky season for Nielsen Racing this year. That is the 27 car, the lead of that group, Bruce Rani, head of the, well, that's the Euro International car that's lapsed down, followed by what looks to me, that's the
Gary Hauser and
race experience car.
Yeah, and then the RLR trying to get past him.
Anybody that doesn't know the name of Gary Hauser, have a quick look on YouTube. Look, hill climb, GP2 car. Strap yourself in.
slightly offline though through the Porsche curves and allowing allowing Japikson to get back onto the tail of him with this Euro International car 1 lap down, running at a pretty decent pace, but of course kind of out of place.
Right, so what we've got here is the number 11 car, one of the Le Mans Cup cars. The other 2 cars are both ELMS full season entries, and that was great stuff. That was Jakobsen basically saying, no, not after you. That car is a lap down, 14. Yes. Jakobsen did not want to be held up behind him, but that was, for a lad in his teens, a very mature move.
Get out of the way.
That young man, mark my words, we will be talking about in future seasons. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He's rapid. And I think we're going to be hearing more of the name of Milton Jakobsen.
Now back onto the tail of Gary Hauser as we'll pick up the slipstream down the Mulsanne. Expect that to change at some point. Definitely has the pace over the 7th placed Racing Experience LMP3. As we switch our attention now to GT3, led by Andrea Coldarelli in the Lamborghini. He's 3 seconds to the good of David Perel in Kessel Racing's Ferrari.
Coach Dave.
And this, Coach Dave, this is the battle for 6th position. Long way back between Andrea and Giacomo Piccini. Both Piccinis.
Yep. In fact, side by side as they come down the Nodier. And is this going to be a positional change? It is.
Actually, it's not.
It's not. It's that's Roberti, isn't it? Yeah.
Roberti passed Piccini, and then Andrea Piccini leads those 2 by 4 seconds at the moment.
Is that broken front? The splitter's broken on the RLR car. There is damage to the splitter.
Oh yeah, that's properly in 2 now. And that'll give them, Peter, a bit of a funny feeling at high speed, won't it? The air passing over a splitter in 2 parts.
Yeah, normally there's a bit of vibration from that. You maybe just lose a little bit of front downforce, therefore understeer a bit more than normal. Means the rear stays stable, but you can't carry the same amount of speed through the corner.
So, tucking in behind the number 11 car, flash of the lights. looks to just dummy him, but that's an experienced racer. Goes out the inside, but a great move from Melty Jakobsen. Is he going to go too wide here? He's got enough, I think. Oh, that's maybe a little bit naughty,
Careful.
but he covers it. But that will not have impressed Gary Hauser, will it, Peter?
No, that was a good, strong move, to be honest, and he held it well on the exit, because I thought the other car was going to get the cutback, but he didn't quite make it, and then he was quite robust with his defence afterwards. So what's going to happen now with the front of the car through? I mean, he's still carrying a lot of speed into Indianapolis, which is a high-speed entry. So I don't the that splitter's affecting him too much.
Yeah, he probably doesn't know. It's a matter of...
Sometimes it's best that you don't know.
Maybe.
We had a quick shot of Ugo de Velde in the pit lane, so our one-time leader through the cycle of pit stops has got an issue with the car. And is now in the pits. Wolfgang Triller is in the pits with them. We've also got Gareth Grist stopped out on circuit somewhere. We've not seen that, and it's not even come up as a yellow flag. So.
If that's the case, they've had a horrible weekend. The car required a complete change of chassis after Rob Hodes hit a trackside marker. That would have been yesterday, day before yesterday rather. And that's one of the legality panels in the back of one of the LMP3 cars.
Well, we think that's Bruce Shaw in his car.
Right. And that's,
but I'll tell you what, the yellow flag was so slow that the marshal was back over the barrier by the time it flashed on.
No, that'll be down back in the paddock, getting signed for someone's garage wall at some point.
Still 2 seconds between these leaders. Cool Racing versus DK Engineering, an inverse of what we saw yesterday. And there's fractions of a second being nibbled away by the two right now. They're really stable as a gap. Matt Bell was a little faster on that last lap, but still 8 seconds back from the lead.
Clock has switched, by the way, from a lap countdown to a time countdown, so we're under 10 minutes to go. So this will be because of those safety car laps at the start of the race. This is all about managing the fuel in these cars. Trouble at the rear there of...
This is the Ugo de Velde car.
It is.
And now they're ready with the extinguisher. They've had a dig around, and DK Engineering are now already just monitoring that to make sure it doesn't do too much more damage with the heat.
This is the twin to that car, running second. Lawrence Hurt 2 seconds back and matching more or less lap for lap time. Quickest man on the circuit at the moment, by the way, David Drew in the Real Team Racing car, is still making progress, 14th position, but he's lapping in the 3:48s and is catching the cars ahead of him pretty quickly. The top 10 is not out of reach for David Drew.
Race control still telling us that it's raining, but not really much evidence to suggest it. They keep moving it to slightly later, but other than that one windscreen wiper, with nothing to suggest that there's any rain out on circuit. And the clouds are pretty high right now, but it's certainly not the summer's days that we've been experiencing through the rest of the week here. It's definitely got decidedly September-y.
Yeah, we got actually a train of 3 LMP3 cars, 11th, 12th, 13th, or 11th, 13th and 14th at the moment, because the Castle Racing cars falling back in amongst them. This is the GT3 leader just going by now, lapping the number 51 Ferrari. But Duncan Tappy, Andy Merrick and David Drew in pretty close proximity and making progress now through the lead pair of GT3s. There is Tappy in the background there behind the 51 Ferrari that's just been lapped by the number 63 Lamborghini.
Caldarelli, FFS Racing by ACM, ACM being the Automobile Club de Monaco. And Caldarelli for that license anyway is a Monegasque.
Indeed, and that was the ACM Monaco, of course. We were an entrant here last year with an all Monegasque crewed Porsche, owned oddly enough by the owner of Hub Auto, who's making that team's debut at the Le Mans 24 Hours this year.
And they also entered, the ACM entered a car in the Le Mans 24 Hour Virtual with the Princess Trust, the Princesses Trust for children. I did see one of the garages as we were walking, doing our pit walk, had that sticker on it. So one of the 24-hour entries is also supporting.
That was with Vincent Abril. Yep. David Drew, again another fastest lap. David Perel now dealing with the 51, the lapped Ferrari, but being caught and reeled in by the chasing 13th and 14th place, 24 and 4 United Autosports and Real Team LMP3s.
Now, we didn't see this yesterday. Caldarelli actually dominated yesterday, but Perel's got the pace on the Lamborghini today, taking a second per lap out of the Lamborghini. He's going to run out of time, I think, because we are only 6.5 minutes away from the checkered flag. So that's going to be 2 laps.
That's
maybe 3 laps.
Depends when they cross. Yeah, I mean, it could be 2 laps. I think it's Duncan Tappy now closing up behind Caldarelli. I think it's about 4 or 5 seconds quicker on the last lap. So that just shows the speed of Tappy in the LMP3 car.
And Tappy trying to get past the karting. That's not a place to stick your nose in. Caldarelli runs a little bit wide on the exit. And now there's a little gap between the two of them. But Caldarelli doesn't want to be compromised by Duncan Tappy getting past. He needs Tappy to be kind on where they pass so that he doesn't look too much time to Perel behind.
Yeah, well, Perel's not far away, is he?
No, exactly.
And he's pushing on. You saw when he came to lap that Ferrari, his lights were ablaze all the time. Get out of the way, get out of the way. I want to catch that Lamborghini in front of me.
He smells an opportunity for victory at Le Mans in the GT3 category as we switch our attention to our leader again, who has lost a little bit of advantage on that last lap, just a couple of tenths as Laurent Sur manages to find his best lap time of the race so far. And again through sector 1 is going quicker, flashing the lights.
Yep, the racing driver's equivalent of a go faster stripe is the flasher button.
Get out of my way.
Absolutely. Get out of my way, you lingering leader, you.
The fastest of our top 3, though, is Matt Bell in 3rd position, but unfortunately 8 seconds now down from the leader. He's going to need a miracle to get into contention with those two.
He's going to need the first 2 to come together and start fighting aggressively so that he might be able to catch up, but that's unlikely now because they've had a pretty separated existence. 2 seconds between the first 2 now. I think that, you know, it looks as though that Eduardo has got the legs on.
He's managing it well, isn't he? He's managing this well. It's been despite the stumbles at the first race this season in the Le Mans Cup, has been an impressive coupling. Cool Racing really coming into their own in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this year. But some quick men behind them, making up time, but not necessarily positions. Duncan Tappy is now past the Andrea Caldarelli Triple F Lamborghini into 10th position.
What that means now is David Perel is only 1.5 seconds behind that Lamborghini, so there could well be a change at the end of this race for the lead in GT3. The Lamborghini's led it from the very beginning, and Kessel Racing have done a great job to pick up lots and lots of places.
And completely unlike, by the way, the WEC within the Le Mans 24 Hours, these guest cars do take points from the season entries in the Le Mans Cup. So in terms of not just the race but the championship, that really matters.
Now Andy Merrick moves past Perel, but Perel was a good second quicker in the first sector than Caldarelli, so
it's on, isn't it?
It is on. There's a possibility there.
And here's Jacobsen making up more ground, 7th position right now, but Bruce Joanny just ahead of him. Could well smell a top 6 finish for R&R by the end of this race. Even with that front splitter slightly damaged, he still has a decent pace, and it always surprises me when you look at cars with slight damage just how well they can still run, considering the effort that is put into developing a very aerodynamically efficient machine.
Absolutely. 6th place would be a cracking result for the young Dane with a damaged car.
Right, so we are on the final lap now.
Okay, yeah, the first 2 have gone over the line. Less than a lap's length to go. 2.5 seconds now to the good is Cool Racing, and therefore looking strong. Just one more lap to complete to get the victory.
Pit stop for Andy Merrick under investigation, and that's because it's under 2 minutes.
Oh,
2 minutes is the
move.
bogey, and he's done it again. Has he managed to keep it? He has.
He's done it again on the first part of the Ford chicane,
Wow.
the faster part of the Ford chicane, as Joanny gets all top gear on the exit.
This kid is exciting, isn't he?
That was a lovely move into top 6, and now Joanny's got damage too, let's not forget. He's missing a legality panel on the rear left corner. That was the thing that was deposited here a couple of laps ago. So both of those cars are slightly wounded. He was driving a wounded car yesterday, I saw on social media. The front end of that car was damaged in his combat, but He's only got a couple of races in the Le Mans Cup. This is supposed to be his last, Bruce Joanny, who was once in Super League Formula, in Formula 3, very, very fast driver. I think even in Formula 3000. And now makes his trade as a TV presenter and is a very popular member of Top Gear France.
As well he might be. He's a lovely personality, always has been. 16 years old, by the way, Malte Jakobsen.
Wow, then it's even more impressive.
Absolutely. At that kind of age should be hanging around outside an off licence somewhere, but no, he's not. He's pulling off moves like that through and into the Ford chicane over a man as experienced as Bruce Joanny.
One eye on the battle for GT3, 1.3 seconds between the two of them now, but they've got David Drew who's trying to get past the two of them as well, so he could upset that battle. Here is our leader in the LMP3 class and overall in the race through Mulsanne, sorry, at the far end of the circuit with 2.5 seconds advantage over DK Engineering. So one apiece effectively if it ends the way it looks to do at the moment. Yesterday it was DK Engineering first and the 37 Cool Racing second. Today it looks like it'll be the opposite way around, with Matt Bell taking a consistent third position with Maurice Smith yesterday, and by the looks of things today, no real challenge from behind, and he's never really been able to get in touch in front. So here is David Drew, who's got past David Perel, and now needs to get past Caldarelli, but luckily it's down the straights, and that therefore should be slightly easier for him to do, although, as you say, pace is quite similar between the two.
Pretty similar. That Lamborghini is rapid in a straight line. That
He
big
had a better
V10.
exit there, though.
Yeah.
Definitely through that chicane, so you should see him pop by now.
And he does, well done.
Yeah, Perel's lost half a second in that exchange, so where Perel got past certainly compromised the Ferrari more than the Lamborghini. And going into the braking zone now at Mulsanne, the LMP3 is clear and ahead. Caldarelli is okay. Back to our leader then through the Porsche curves. They've done it all right. They had to drive with wet tyres in the first stint. The gentleman driver dealing with mixed conditions and a mixed tyre, not really the correct tyre for the conditions at that moment, but a safe tyre. And then the pro drivers getting the opportunity to get on slicks around this Circuit de la Sarre and put in some absolutely spectacular laps. It's the Cool Racing 37 that takes victory at race 2 of the road to Le Mans here at the Circuit de la Sarre, with a gap of 2.7 seconds in the end to Lawrence Herr in DK Engineering's number 3. And Matt Bell celebrates in a few moments' time a third position for Cool Racing. So they were on the podium double yesterday and they are on the podium double today. Colin Noble, 4th spot for Nielsen Racing, and hopefully Colin Noble this time will be able to hold that position because he got demoted yesterday. Here is the battle for GT3. We've still got all of the Porsche curves to do and a couple of braking zones into Indianapolis and Arnage.
He's certainly looking a bit closer now, isn't he?
I know, we are in the Porsche curves now. We've gone past Indianapolis and Arnage, so really only one major braking zone. Has Perel got enough momentum through these sweepers to get him to the tail and maybe throw it down the inside when he gets to the Ford chicane?
He's certainly using all the tracking a bit more through there anyway, the exit of the Porsche curbs.
He's getting closer, he's getting closer. There's not really a braking zone into the first part. It's the second part perhaps where he could do it, but is he brave enough? Is he close enough? Not quite. Rattles over the curbs, tries to get a better exit. There's the checkered flag and Caldarelli holds on. That was very, very entertaining, but Perel seems happy with second.
Excellent stuff in GT3, excellent stuff at the front of that race. Pace paid off, didn't it? And the 37 car, the Cool Racing car, takes its second race win of the Michelin Le Mans Cup season. Remember, this is a round of that series. They won for the first time in Spa, and it's developing into quite a year.
There's Nico Lapierre, team manager.
Co-owner.
Co-owner.
So he's a shareholder in Cool Racing, so has skin in the game. And certainly part of his role here is kind of the sporting direction of that effort.
And just an update on Garrett Grist. They must have had a transponder issue because they've ended up finishing in 15th position. So he was stopped for a couple of laps, but now he's managed to take the checkered flag. So good news for Nielsen.
Yeah. So Cool Racing, DKR Cool Racing will be the overall podium. In GT3, Triple F Racing team by ACM, Kessel Racing and the Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari. So the two guesting GT3 cars make the podium. But some standout performances right through that order. The prevailing talent at the moment paying off there for the most part, but some emerging talents as well beginning to show themselves. And Peter, what do you think? For me, great stuff at the front, but young Mr. Jakobsen.
Yes, I'd love to have seen him actually a bit further up and fighting with Matt Neal and the front two cars. Lap times wise, it's hard to say because he was in traffic a lot more. He had a slightly damaged car, but his lap times weren't quite as quick as the first three cars on the road. But definitely a future there, and yeah, I'll be looking out for him.
Great stuff again. This is the Sky Tempesta car, finished third in GT3. Here's our second placed car, number 74 from Kessel Racing from Switzerland. And making the move to lap the 51. This is the race winning, now double race winning, here at the Road to Le Mans. 63 Triple F Racing team by ACM. Hiroshi Hamaguchi and Andrea Caldereri are the double winners here at the Road to Le Mans in GT3.
And they were well up the field in the grid. Remember, they started 7th or 8th position on the grid, whereas the Kessel Racing 74 had a lot of work to do. So, in a way, great work from Lamborghini, but even better work from Kessel Racing to make their way not only in the GT3 pack, but also past some of the slower LMPs. Just
a bit of an indication as to how long a circuit it is. These cars had a chance to turn around, run all the way back down pit lane, get out, congratulate each other, make their way towards wherever the podium is going to be held, and there were still cars finishing the race.
It does look like they're all getting ready to queue up to go back to their paddock.
I think the podium for this is taking place in their paddock. I think so.
We'll make it a little tricky for us to commentate on the
That will
podium.
be slightly tricky.
Not sure we've got a camera over there.
69 car, this is the Maurice Smith, Matt Bell effort. That will complete the podium. Second place is number 3 DKR car. And Jean Gloria and Lawrence Hurt continuing their remarkable record of podium finishes in Le Mans Cup. And the winners, of course, the number 37 car, Edouard Kohlhoop and Nicolas Malini. They are very much now a force to be reckoned with. The great news, though, is not the only forces to be reckoned with in Le Mans Cup, and if this is your first taster for this support series for the LMS, normally, carry on, because this is a cracking series on European Le Mans Series weekends. I don't think we were expecting that, were we? That is a Porsche 919.
Certainly not on the certainly not on the Road to Le Mans broadcast, that's for sure.
That would have been a bit unfair, wouldn't it?
So
unless they put me in it, in which case it would have been probably a fair fight.
The celebrations and festivities continue here at Le Mans as we get ready for the start of the 24 hours in just 2.5 hours' time. But here are the highlights of the Road to Le Mans. Safety car start, not because of a Porsche in the wall before we got going, but because of the damp conditions and the drivers needing to get familiar with exactly how the track was playing out. Cars on wet tyres, though, despite a very, very strong dry line, the majority on wet tyres, and then we ended up going running. At the start, it was a great battle between our two GT3 cars. The Lamborghini, for a few moments, losing the lead of GT3. They were 7th and 8th going into the race on the grid. But Patrice Lafarge was really the loser of that first part of the race in the IDEX Sport, the red machine on the outside. This was a moment where he just got a little bit squirrely going through the Ford chicane, and a whole clump of LMP3s came shooting by, not just into the first chicane, but then out of Tetra Rouge as well. He did exactly the same thing. A spin for the United Autosports 24 car, and that was Daniel Schneider at the wheel. and then the pit stops happen. 37, our leader coming into the pits, whilst the DK Engineering #1 inherited the lead, having spent a couple of extra laps out on track. A little clash at the forward chicane between United Autosport's Wayne Boyd and Bruce Joanny. Joanny continued with damaged car, but Wayne Boyd had an issue. Finally, Ugo de Walden brought the #1 car in, but unfortunately that then had engine issues and was unable to continue and complete the race. Oh, there was a nice slide that we didn't see from the #8 Ferrari. Giacomo Puccini ending up actually 5th once he was aboard that car, and a good recovery drive past Paoli Roberti first, then past Andrea Puccini, and up into the first of the Iron Lynx cars by the end. Little lappery to do from our leader. Another thing we didn't see there, the leader jumping across the finish line, but eventually taking victory by 2.7 seconds ahead of DKR Engineering. And its teammate Cool Racing picking up 3rd, with a great battle to the line between the GT3 cars of Lamborghini and Ferrari. Two very entertaining Road to Le Mans races, and confirmation once again of the result. Good close racing yesterday, and another race to difficult conditions. You can still see that there's kind of damp even on the start line. But the grid dealt with it well. There was not too much chaos. We saw a lot of chaos in the other support races, but ultimately we did not have a safety car period. We had the odd slow zone for a little mistake, and really the major incident was down there at Indianapolis, and I'm not blaming the driver for that one, because it really did look like there was an issue with the car. I know Peter will disagree with me, but...
No, I reserved judgment. No, it did look a bit strange to me as well, and the fact that the car was smoking so much when they picked it up with a loader. So no, let's err on the side of caution with that and say no, it was the car's issue, not the driver, because it's a strange place to go off as well. You know, it's almost flat through that first part of Indianapolis, and the driver just ended up way on the left side. So yeah, great bit of racing there though.
Well, it's been very, very entertaining. All of our support races are now over here at the Circuit de la Sarthe, and we focus our attention on getting the 88th running of the Le Mans 24 hours underway in around 2 hours' time.
And this is the point where all the disappointment of not having you here with us goes away. We go racing. Let's go racing. Let's forget all the woes that are around elsewhere in the world and just glory in the fact that this is still the greatest race in the world, and it will be 24 hours of wheel-banging speed.
It's going to be very, very entertaining throughout the 24 hours. Settle in, get yourselves ready, and enjoy.
normal upgrade or the normal engine, you are always pressing and waiting.
You have the
Toch on demand is that okay? But it's a
the launch start from zero.
À bien vouloir, peut-on peut-être même le faire maintenant? Messieurs, voilà, levez le voile sur cette remarquable voiture. Voilà, souvenez-vous, mesdames et messieurs, c'était il y a quelques courtes années. Porsche gagnait le 24 heures du Mans, 3 victoires consécutives avec la Porsche 919. Et ici, vous avez la voiture avec le marquage sur les côtés de la victoire de 2016. Merci, mesdames et messieurs. Voilà, de bien vouloir aussi nous accorder quelques instants de concentration par rapport à cette très belle image. La remise de ce volant, parce que c'est une vraie voiture qui est effectivement remise au musée. Et nous allons avec le micro, voilà, passer notamment celui-ci au président de l'Automobile Club de l'Ouest, Pierre Fillon. Voilà, encore quelques instants pour cette photo, on le comprend bien. Voilà, avant donc en effet, président, de vous passer ce micro pour les quelques mots que vous avez envie bien sûr de prononcer, parce que c'est une remise de voiture particulièrement importante. Président, bonjour. Je trouve que ce volant vous va également très très bien. Nous sommes avec le micro-perche, voilà. Président, ça fait quelle impression de tenir ce volant et de voir cette voiture aussi arriver?
Écoutez, c'est un grand honneur. On célèbre cette année la première victoire de Porsche il y a 50 ans. Alors c'est vrai que la 917, la 911 sont des véhicules iconiques. Mais là, il y a une voiture qui, pour moi, est la voiture de course la plus sophistiquée qui n'ait jamais été construite en termes de performance et en termes d'efficacité énergétique. C'est cette Porsche 919. Et je voudrais remercier Porsche qui nous offre cette voiture pour le musée. Elle va avoir un très bel écrin. Et je remercie tout particulièrement Fritz Enzinger, le docteur Porsche et Oliver Blume.
Fritz Enzinger, guten Tag und willkommen. Thank you so much for, I can say, this superb gift. This Porsche now is going to be presented in the car museum of the 24 Heures du Mans.
Yeah, so it's a great moment for us, so we can say thank you to Pierre, thank you to the ACO. It was a successful car and I think the car is back on the right place.
Effectivement, c'est un moment très important pour nous. Nous sommes très très heureux de vous présenter effectivement cette voiture et de la remettre à l'Automobile Club de l'Ouest pour cette présentation, cette exposition permanente au musée des 24 Heures du Mans. Merci beaucoup encore, messieurs. Pierre Fillon, Fritz Enzinger. Dankeschön. Dankeschön. And of course we wish success to Porsche to celebrate with the GT E-Pro class, the 50th anniversary of the first of the 19 victories of Porsche at Le Mans. Voilà, mesdames et messieurs, nous allons en effet en profiter pour rappeler que nous avons, à l'occasion de ce week-end des 24 Heures du Mans, la célébration d'un anniversaire très important, le 50e anniversaire de la première des 19 victoires de Porsche. Après, naturellement, les victoires de 1970 et de 1971. Jackie X, que le président Pierre Fillon a aussi reçu sur ce circuit en début de semaine, pourrait le rappeler. Il y avait eu les victoires des 936. Voilà ce que j'appellerais également le coup de coude amical pour remercier encore une fois Porsche et Porsche Motorsport. Les victoires des 936 dans les années 70. Le président n'avait pas le droit de garder ce volant. Et puis, naturellement, même aussi la Porsche Jules qui a permis à Jackie X et de Bell de gagner en 1981, avant les années groupe C, avec les Porsche 956 et 962C. La Porsche GT1, bien sûr, de 1998. Tiens, Yannick Dalmas, que je reconnais d'ici, se souvient bien également de ces épisodes avec les fameuses Porsche GT1. Et naturellement, plus près de nous, dans la génération des années 2000, la voiture hybride par excellence. C'est le lien entre la démonstration sur piste des capacités à faire des voitures extrêmement performantes au niveau consommation sur la route avec la Porsche 919, la voiture hybride et les 3 victoires consécutives qui ont permis ensuite à Porsche de devenir, après Audi, le 2e constructeur à donc gagner définitivement le grand trophée des 24 Heures du Mans. Voilà pour cette remise de Porsche, encore une fois. Noch einmal, vielen Dank Porsche für diese Wagen, pour cette voiture Fritz Enzinger et la remise ainsi de cette Porsche 919 à voir donc au musée des 24 heures du Mans à partir de maintenant. Romain Dumas, Neil Jani, Marc Lips, c'est la voiture de la victoire de 2016. C'est aussi la voiture qui, rappelons-le, on a profité de ce petit coup de pouce du destin en 2016 pour gagner la course, alors que le grand rival de l'époque, Toyota, filait justement vers la victoire. Mais ça aussi, ces abandons si près du but, ça fait partie de la légende, du mythe des 24 heures du Mans. Et c'est aussi pourquoi cette course, nous l'aimons autant. Merci. 3 fois le Mans consécutivement avec la même licence concurrente pour peut-être ce trophée de l'hiver de la 919 en a été sur Toyota de objectif victoire la 27.
Just put it in the edge, Fred. Take the wheels off. Can't open the doors. It's there. Tutto bene. More air pressure there.
Oui, mais tout le monde prend des selfies, t'as l'impression de gâcher le... Non. Ah, c'est pour ça que vous disiez que c'était votre métier. D'accord.
2009,
Bon, ça je savais.
c'est bien.